I've been longing for the face and body of my boyfriend Asher Trainer for a long time. Or rather, it was because of his face that I painstakingly pursued him for days. But my boyfriend, who I finally won over, is too pure-hearted. We've been together for over 3 months, but we've only gone as far as kissing. Ding! Wisnovel reminds you to click the subscribe button in the bottom right corner to read the complete novel. In order to get him into my bed sooner, I've made numerous suggestions and hints. Finally, Asher saw through my intentions and started to loosen up a bit. He said that we could take the next step, but we had to meet his family first. I understood that my boyfriend has always been a responsible person. And some things only become certain after meeting the parents. But can someone tell me why Asher brought me to meet not his parents, but his twin brother? In the car, Asher reassured me. Don't worry, my brother is easy to get along with. But now, as I looked at the man sitting on the leather sofa in a suit, wearing gold-rimmed glasses, and rarely smiling, I silently criticized him in my heart. Looking at his expression, how does it have anything to do with being easy to get along with? Perhaps my gaze was too direct, and the man on the sofa slightly raised his eyelids. His scrutinizing gaze landed on my face. Finally, he got up, walked around the coffee table, and came in front of me, extending his hand with great seriousness. I stared at the face that was exactly the same as my boyfriend's, feeling a bit confused. But I still held his hand. He smirked and said to me, "Hello, Haley." I inexplicably felt that the tone was somewhat familiar. But I ignored the somewhat intimate address that came out of his mouth. I also greeted him, "Hello, Ethan." His eagle-like gaze was very penetrating. After staring at me for a while, he finally spoke. "Now that you're here at the mansion, treat it as a vacation. If you're bored, you can go skiing." Oh, okay. I think I understand why Asher wanted me to meet his brother Ethan Trainer first. Judging by the aura of this brother, it's probably similar to meeting the parents. Perhaps, after passing this brother's test, Asher and I will be completely settled. This is my own psychological consolation. But what I can't console myself about is that the way this older brother looks at me is too intense, making me feel uneasy. Fortunately, Asher quickly rescued me from this awkward situation. He said he wanted to take me to wash the freshly bought cherries. As we left the living room, I felt like I had come back to life. Even washing fruit made me incredibly happy. Asher could clearly see my embarrassment and tried to comfort me. My brother's temperament is actually quite good. It's just that after he had a relationship abroad 2 years ago, he came back and became cold and distant. A relationship? I was a little surprised. It was hard to imagine that Ethan Trainer, who seemed so serious and indifferent, would have a relationship. Yes, despite my brother's aloof appearance, he can be gentle as water when he loves someone. Asher stuffed a cherry into my mouth and then asked me a question while hugging me. "But since my brother and I look so alike, can you tell us apart?" Of course. How could I not? My Asher was as bright as the sun, while Ethan seemed like a gloomy cold wind on a snowy day. Even from a distance, you could feel the chill he emanated. Asher turned me around, wrapped his arms around me, and looked into my eyes with a gentle gaze. This posture, this look, it was all too familiar. It was the signature move he made when he wanted a kiss. Yes, Asher wanted to kiss me. But just as he leaned in, there was suddenly the sound of breaking glass near the refrigerator. Asher and I were startled and turned to look. We saw the culprit calmly stepping over the shattered glass fragments, and after a cold remark, he left. "I'll go get some water." That night, I was arranged to stay in a room opposite Ethan's room. And Asher's room was on the 3rd floor. I didn't know why it was arranged this way. But Asher explained it to me. Ethan wanted his room on the 2nd floor for convenience when going to the company. The remaining room on the 2nd floor is the guest room, which is perfect for you. As for me and my parents, we're all in the 2 rooms on the 3rd floor. Since he put it that way, I couldn't bring myself to ask to sleep in his parents' room or share a room with him. And it would be even more embarrassing to ask him to switch rooms with his brother. It's okay to stay in the guest room, I can simply lock the door before sleeping. Although Ethan looked strange. He probably wouldn't do anything like sneaking into his brother's girlfriend's room in the middle of the night. After I finished showering at night, Asher, who came down to bring me some fruit, bid me good night. As I watched his figure disappear at the staircase, I was about to close the door when I locked eyes with Ethan, who was coming up from downstairs. My hand that was closing the door froze, and my gaze instinctively fell on his lean body. Perhaps he had just finished working out, as Ethan wasn't wearing a shirt. Sweat trickled down the muscles of his body, leaving a few watermarks on the gray sweatpants he wore on his lower half. His inverted triangle golden figure was enough to make anyone drool. I silently stopped drying my hair, unable to give a proper response to this moment as his prospective sister-in-law. It wasn't until he stopped and his cool gaze behind the gold-rimmed glasses began to scrutinize me. That's when I seemed to snap out of it and immediately closed the door. Behind the door, I patted my flushed face. A thought quietly emerged in my mind. I wonder if Asher has a body like his brother? He probably does, right? It doesn't matter. I'll find out once I leave the mansion and sleep with him. Perhaps because of the stimulation before bed, I had a dream that truly stimulated me. In my dream, everything was bathed in a soft light. I was lying naked, pressed against a soft blanket, by a pair of hands with bulging veins. The wind gently brushed against the gauze curtains, caressing my back, while above me, I could hear heavy breathing. The sensation of being so comfortable invaded my whole body, making me feel weak and powerless. I wanted to see who was teasing me when suddenly, he kissed my earlobe. He called me gently, Haley. I don't know how long it had been, but the man finally turned me over. I saw that familiar face. It was Asher. I felt relieved, allowing myself to be teased by him in my dream. But in my daze, I noticed a scar at the corner of Asher's eye that I had never seen before. But does Asher really have that scar? This question completely woke me up from my dream. I looked at the unfamiliar room and the late hour of the night. At first, I laughed at myself. I never expected that I would be in lust. And once again had a dream about Asher. But then, I couldn't help but wonder if Asher really had that scar. Or was it just a random guess in my dream? I decided that when I woke up in the morning, I would carefully examine it. However, as I entered a deep sleep, I suddenly heard a slight turning sound on the doorknob. The door opened. A familiar and tall figure entered my room. I called out softly, Asher? At that moment, his footsteps paused. I sensed something was wrong and immediately turned on the bedside lamp. In the dim light, the familiar figure walked towards me. But somehow, I felt that Asher was different from usual. That figure seemed colder in temperament, more powerful. He didn't look like Asher, but more like. Before I could react, the man had already sat at the edge of the bed. He reached out his well-defined hand and gently wiped away the sweat on my forehead. Instinctively, I recoiled a little. But then I remembered that if the person in front of me was Ethan, he wouldn't be so gentle with me. Sure enough, faced with my resistance, the man in front of me seemed surprised. There was still a hint of hurt in his eyes. Haley, is everything okay? He leaned closer to me, and the light softened his features. And I finally noticed the scar at the corner of his eye, just like in my dream. In that moment, I let out a sigh of relief, confirming that the person in front of me was indeed Asher. So, in a childish manner, I hugged his waist and looked up at him. Asher, why did you come here in this time? He smiled slightly. I was worried that you wouldn't be comfortable sleeping here. Then will you sleep with me? I moved over to make room for him. Normally, Asher would reluctantly smile at me and let me sleep on my own. But today was different. He lay down on his side, placing his hand on my waist, gently patting me as if soothing a child to sleep. After a while, I leaned close to his ear, unable to resist teasing him. Why are you so obedient today? Aren't you afraid that I will eat you when you sleep next to me? He was taken aback, then chuckled softly. Not afraid. I playfully leaned in and bit his earlobe. Feeling his body tense up, I couldn't help but show a mischievous smile. At that moment, Asher looked at me deeply. But just as he was about to kiss me, there was a noise outside the door. He let go of me, suppressing his emotions, and kissed my forehead. Finally, he said, "Have a good night," and got up, leaving my room. Damn it! It was probably Ethan making a fuss again, causing the man I had in my grasp to run away. I rolled over in frustration and went to sleep. The next day, I woke up early to look for Asher. But I was told that Ethan and Asher had left together. I was stunned and quickly took out my phone to contact Asher. But I saw that he had already sent me a message early in the morning. "Haley, I have something to take care of and will be away for a few days. Have fun at the mansion, I'll come pick you up in a few days." What happened? How could he just leave his dear girlfriend here in this house? But if Asher is not here, and Ethan is not here either, then this mansion will be all mine, won't it? Earlier, Asher said that this mansion is very big. You can pick fruits, soak in hot springs, go boating, and even go skiing. Originally, I wanted to try all of these with him, but after meeting Ethan, I was a bit hesitant to unleash my true self in front of him. But now that even Ethan is not here, maybe I can have some fun on my own. So, I immediately replied okay to him and started my week-long mansion adventure. At first, I enjoyed freely roaming around the mansion. It truly made me happy. But after being alone in the mansion for a while, I started to feel a bit bored. Fortunately, there was a butler in the mansion to accompany me, and he took me to pick a lot of strawberries and cherries. But on the third night, I couldn't bear the loneliness of not seeing Asher anymore. I started packing my luggage and the freshly picked fruits, preparing to go down the mountain to Trainer family's company to find him early the next day. However, I didn't expect that when I woke up the next day. The top of the entire mountain was covered in white, and the road down the mountain was blocked by snow. I messaged Asher saying that I missed him. But all he said was for me to stay on the mountain and not wander around, and if I was bored, I could go skiing. My heart warmed. Turns out he remembered that my favorite activity is skiing. As a reward, I sent him many selfies taken in the mansion. But after that, Asher never replied to my messages. Not being able to contact Asher, my heart couldn't help but feel empty. So much so that I couldn't even focus on skiing and fell several times. Later, during a break, I called him. But unexpectedly, all 3 calls were rejected. My heart sank. My intuition told me that something had happened, otherwise Asher wouldn't ignore my messages. I got upset and asked him if he wanted to break up. This time, Asher quickly replied to me. But his reply was, "Haley, is the person you love really me?" I was stunned and was about to scold him. If I don't love him, then who else could I love? At this moment, Asher sent another message. "Haley, I want to take some time to calm down." I was furious at this unclear nonsense, so I sent a message back. "What do you need to calm down? Calm down your love for me? Then, instead of calming down, let's break up." After saying that, I turned off my phone. In the past, whenever I mentioned breaking up, Asher would always try his best to contact me, find me, and then apologize. I thought this time would be no exception. I went skiing for the rest of the afternoon. When it got dark, I opened my phone again and indeed saw a message from Asher. I thought to myself, this old-fashioned guy must be nervous. But unexpectedly, in the chat window, Asher's message was, "Okay." At that moment, I felt like I had fallen into an ice house. I ran back to the mansion in tears. At that moment, the butler was startled by my sobbing. He quickly asked if I had hurt myself while skiing. But I didn't know how to respond, so I just went straight to my room to finish packing my half-packed suitcase. I thought I should go down the mountain and find Asher to get a clear answer. As I carried my suitcase downstairs, I accidentally bumped into someone at the corner. When I saw that familiar face, I instinctively wanted to cry and then curse at him. But when I noticed that he was wearing gold-rimmed glasses, all my anger turned into a cold shower pouring down from my head. He asked me, "Haley? Where are you going?" I bit my lip and chose to tell him. Asher and I broke up, and I think it's time for me to leave the mansion. After saying that, I continued to carry my suitcase downstairs. But soon, Ethan stopped me again. He looked at the sky outside and reminded me. It's dangerous to go out in the snow. I turned to look at him. Ethan was taken aback, and I think he must have seen the tears in my eyes. I told him, "Ethan, right now I just want to go down the mountain and ask Asher for a clear answer." At that moment, Ethan looked deeply into my eyes and finally let go.